So this is Nicole Yankowski. Nicole, can you tell us why you decided to become a special education teacher?
The reason I became a special ed teacher is I wanted to make a difference in kids' lives. And honestly, my coach at the high school level really inspired me to think about working with kids with special needs. And so I helped out with the adaptive Phi-Ed program when I was a junior and a senior in high school. And that's where my passion came from. And I've been doing it for about 20 plus years and absolutely love my job here on the island.
Thank you. Wonderful. Wow, 20 years. So much. And Crystal Brogdon, why did you become a special ed teacher?
I became a special education teacher because I love seeing students win. And I love seeing that moment when they finally get it, and they're so proud of themselves. And you can just see that shift in their confidence and their belief, and their hopes and dreams just become so much bigger. So that is why I became a special education teacher.
Thanks, Crystal. And last but not least is Megan Lint. Same question goes to you, my friend.
No, I actually fell into special education. I went to school for my undergrad for elementary, just gen ed. And through my first teaching experience, I found that I wanted more skills to be able to support my students who had behavior and intellectual disabilities that I didn't have. So I went to school and I got put in a special ed position, and it literally is the best job ever as a teacher. So just being able to fall into it, it's been difficult and challenging, but it's so rewarding. So I absolutely love it.
Why middle school? Why did you guys decide to teach special education at the middle school level specifically?
Well, I'll start off and say it was a total accident. Um, it was, I was a long-term sub at the high school, and I've always worked in the high school setting. And it was that time where I was getting into Manoa's program, and I was answering, my phone calls for interviews, and I thought it was the high school calling. So I answered it, and I went in for my interview and landed a middle school teaching math, position, special education, teaching resource math. And it has been the best thing to happen to me ever. I found like my home, I want to say, like in teaching. I love everything about middle school. And I remember in the interview they asked, and they're like, that middle school is like a whole nother beast. You have like, this is the age where kids are going through like all these different changes. Are you ready for that? And it's like, turns out to be like one of the main reasons I love teaching middle school. It's like the perfect age group.
I would piggyback on that as well. I have experience at the I spent 14 years teaching elementary and then 3 years at the high school level. And my husband and I moved to the island about a year and a half ago, and I applied for a position with the DOE, and I ended up getting a position out at Eva Mackay. And honestly, I love my job. I absolutely, driving out from town, I absolutely love my job because I feel like kids are at that age where I can still influence them. I can teach them self-advocacy skills. I can still bring out my sense of humor and playfulness with the kids. And I don't know, I just feel like there's that molding, you're making this beautiful masterpiece. And when kids honestly tell you that I got it all by myself, I can do it by myself. That's why we're in this. It gives me chicken skin, man.
I would piggyback off of Nikki, actually. When I applied for a job in the DOE, I was just applying for any job in special education. And I had done a long-term student teaching position in a 7th grade FSC classroom, and I thought it was super great. And I was like, this is what I want to do if I ever got to teach. And when I was placed in the DOE, I actually got an inclusion classroom, and I have only ever co-taught. So it was just like this slide, and like honestly, it's like a perfect moment where everything just met, and it was beautiful, and it's been great. And for me, middle school, like you said, Crystal, the kids are still growing, they're changing. There's so many weird, wacky moments in middle school that I'm like, I have never been able to say that before. And they have such a great communication. They can joke. You can also be serious with them and talk to them about big things. You know, like in my class right now, we're talking about stress and how that influences them in their classroom and outside of the school. And I mean, I couldn't do that with a preschooler because they're just like, I don't like it. But with middle school, they can actually identify things that stress them out or things that cause them that way. And then to be able to develop healthy coping skills to support them. And, you know, when they come in and they ask you a really weird question, like, I don't know the answer to that. And they're like, oh, okay. Like they're not like, you have to know everything, because it's a constant changing, constantly growing. So it's fantastic. Like they're so fun. And the humor they have is hilarious because they're still little and they're not quite grown up yet. So you can tell those funny jokes and like, oh, you're funny. I'm like, I know.
That sums it up right there. You know, like they're like just at that perfect age where, yeah, all these like wacky things are happening, but they still like need us, you know, like, and I love that. I love that in middle school we're kind of like parenting almost, you know, it's almost like you're teaching and being a guidance counselor at the same time. And they're really open to taking that. They're fun. Everything you say, like I totally agree.
And I think I want to add something too, is I guess part of my mission or my goal in special ed is to change the narrative that special ed is not a bad thing. And that I want those kids to see their abilities versus their disabilities. And so this past week, we actually watched a video on a boy with Down syndrome who completed the Ironman race. And the kids are like, wow, okay, so let's look at his ability versus his disability and just changing that narrative. And I want my kids to see that, you know what, I might need a little extra coaching here or a little extra coaching there, but I also have an incredible strength, whether it's my heart, whether it's my art, whether it's doing things with my hands. I want them to see that. And honestly, I want the rest of the school to see that. And, you know,
Yeah.
Talking. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say with that, like recognizing that our brains all work differently, and that's one of my big things in my classroom is our brains are still developing, and there's so many neurons and all of those things happening inside of your brain. And to be able to talk about that with them, for them to go, okay, it kind of makes sense to me. That's why I need extra support in this. And to change the narrative, like Nikki was talking about, like we're working really hard. We work together at Mackay, so it's really helpful. But you know, working together in helping our students understand that this is what is so great about them, and all of our students have that. Like in an inclusion classroom, I don't have students that are like, why is that kid getting more help? We had the conversation at the beginning of the year that your brain works differently. Some of you might need help in math, some of you might need help in English. Everybody does. And it's just how your brain works, and that it's still developing. And that's why sometimes we just need help. And so being able to bring that narrative to the students to know that, look, there's nothing wrong with me. It's how can I then use my strengths to support myself in school. So it's huge. Sorry, Crystal, you go.
Actually,
Just want to say something real quick that, you know, bringing it back to middle school, what you guys are talking about, that's just that perfect age to teach them those thrive skills that they're going to take on to high school. So, you know, I love that you guys are doing that. And, you know, most of us, like, we're just trying to mold our middle schoolers to be the best they can be and take that with them as they continue in school.
Put that in. So our next kind of prompt question is IEP goals. So this is one that I think a lot of people are always, you know, the hard thing. So how much time do you guys spend writing and implementing quality IEPs? And then what resources do you use to create meaningful IEP goals?
Honestly, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. No, Nikki, you go. You go.
Honestly, this is probably the toughest part of my job because number one, finding the time to collect that data, putting the information into words for the IEP, but I guess some of the resources I use are like rubrics, work samples, teacher input, iReady assessments, Khan Academy. I even pull from the social studies and science. If they're doing a nonfiction reading article in either one of those classes, I can pull that data from there. So those are just a couple of the things that I use. And I think the IEP, it really depends on the child. If the child has just like math, it might be a little bit shorter time spending on the IEP or just reading, but if you have a child with reading, writing, math, I mean, it's a lot longer. So I would say at least minimal 3 hours, minimal for writing the IEP.
I would have to agree with a lot of the resources. I use my team a lot. So I use support classroom teachers a lot, actually. I probably bother them too much when it comes to asking them questions about how the student is doing in their classroom, because that's time that I don't see them. So then taking the information, if they're struggling on identifying evidence in a text for 7th grade, what can I do then to write that IEP goal and objectives so that it fits the students' needs in all of their classes. I know my team works a lot on like CERs, which are claim evidence and reasoning, and using a graphic organizer to then put all of this information in to develop a paragraph. And it's like, okay, so we're doing all of these things. It's consistent across our board, and we consistently see a student struggling in this. What can I do then to support the student to make sure they're on grade level? When it comes to writing an IEP, I actually started about 2 weeks before the IEP before the meeting. I like to really comb through all of my evidence. And so I'll sit down. So I don't actually know how long it takes me to actually write an IEP because I do in such small gaps, but I take all of the evidence to develop it. But I try to start about 2 weeks early so I can get everybody's input. And that even includes calling parents at home, like, hey, during this time, our IEP is coming up soon. What are you seeing some struggles in at home that we can also then support at school? And does it match what we're seeing at school to develop that IEP?
Yeah, the same for me. One of the things I'm most grateful for was that in UH Manoa's program, they really taught us how to write a thorough IEP, a tailored IEP. And that's just one of the things that really stuck with me. And I hold myself to that because I feel like every student deserves to have, an IEP that's very tailored to them and their goals and their needs. So it does take me a while. I'm like, Megan, I start earlier and I just do it a little at a time, but I do collaborate with a lot, like our SPBH or other counselors or grade level teachers, if they have classes out. But it's just coming up with, I think to myself, like, hey, this is their plan, like for the next year, like this has to give anybody who picks this up needs to be able to get a good idea of who this student is, what they need help with, what they're able to do, and their goals should really align with what we talk about in the PLEP. And I noticed that that's what takes so long, for me, like that, coming up with really meaningful goals and getting data that like data from all kinds of different places, like the work samples are key. But just, I don't want to just give them, like this one reading test. It's like, hey, let's see if they're actually, if that is true, because maybe they're just clicking buttons. Let's give it to them in this format. So it does take a lot of time. But I think in the end, that's what's going to be, the best thing for the student and the parent to see that, what, like, this is thorough, like this is somebody took their time and my whole team is invested in me and this is what we're going to work on. So yeah,
and I was gonna say, making sure that it's easy to read, not easy to read, but like friendly to read and it's not too much jargon, I guess, because we can have all the IEPs, all the different acronyms and all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely parent-friendly language. Special education has so many acronyms, for every assessment you can think of and all of that. So yeah, definitely making that sure we write in there, what does this even mean? Like, I noticed that even when we say like grade equivalent, you know what I mean? It's like really good to tell the parent, like, no, this is not saying that, like your child is here, but this score represents, so just making that IEP something that is going to go home where they can pick it up and be like, okay, I can understand what I'm reading about. So good point.
So our next question is, collaboration. What types of people do you collaborate with, and how much time do you spend collaborating with others?
I think we need more time, to be honest with you. As a special ed teacher, we need more time to collaborate with, especially for co-teaching, and we're doing an inclusion class, definitely more time in that respect. Anyone else?
Go
Yeah,
ahead,
we collaborate. We have, since we're on 3 different departments in our school because we do inclusion teaching for math and English. We have 3 different departments to meet with, 2 co-teachers, and that doesn't even include like the quick pop-ins between classes or during recess or at lunch where we're talking to the other special ed teachers on our team, and even collaborating with like the FSC teacher who is also working with 7th graders in her classroom. I do a lot of that. And even like our newer special ed teachers in our school, like collaborating with them and helping them and getting ideas from them too, because everybody does something different in their classrooms. And then our co-teachers for sure. I feel like I don't have enough time to collaborate with all of those people within the school day that is consistent and that also like fits within a day. Because I could collaborate with Nikki at like 8 o'clock at night, to help develop our English classes, but you got to get some sleep,
Yeah, and this kind of takes it a different direction. But for my students, I teach, in emotional behavior program at our middle school, and we do a lot of collaboration with the outside team. So therapists, foster parents, everybody. You can think of some meetings are so big, but for me, the way I think about it is we all play such an integral role, in this child's success. So even on campus, we're collaborating with security. We're talking to SBBH a lot. Every person who my student is going to come into contact with, we all need to be on the same page, about how different approaches we're going to try when this is going on or whatnot. So I don't know. I think the more the merrier. And you guys are totally right. There's not a lot of time for that. But, as a special education teacher, you find the time, right, to do what you need to do for your kids. So, yeah, that's about it. Oh, and my EA, I cannot forget about her because she is like so important. So a lot of collaboration with her.
Yeah, EAs.
Valid point. Yes.
Them. They're amazing. I don't know where I would be without my EA.
But I also think there's a point too with educational assistants. We also have to have that time to train them. Whether if a child has a behavior plan, maybe there's different approaches that we're working on for math or reading or any type of social skills. We have to have that time to train that individual, and that's super, super, super important. Number one, for the child's success. Number two, for so that individual feels successful as well.
I would like to add parents. The teamwork that you have to develop at the beginning of the year is crucial. So collaborating with a parent, making sure that they know that there are certain things like, how do I help their child be successful? Is it a checklist? Is it writing in the planner? How do I help that parent also know what is happening at school on top of everything else that they have coming in, and making sure that that parent feels supported too? That's been one of my big goals over COVID was how do I support my parents when they're supporting their child at home.
That's so important. Like, I just want to piggyback on that because so my students' parents, like, we have each other's phone number and we're like texting. And, you know, if my student's having a bad morning or something happened at home, it's so nice to have them just text and let me know so I know why they're coming in, feeling a type of way, and how I can better support them. So I definitely think that parent collaboration is key.
Qualities of successful special ed teachers. So, what do you do to run a highly effective special education classroom? And how do you maintain productive collaborations?
Structure. Huge. Structure, schedule, routine, teach it. We can't just expect kids to know certain skills. We also have to approach it that maybe they don't know the skill. Even simple social skills, maybe they might not have that at home. And so instead of just, we just need to teach specific skills. I think structures, teaching skills, I think positive reinforcement, looking for what you want to see. I think making sure you have norms, rules, expectations, and that we're all on the same page, that we're revisiting those pieces, I think is super, super important. And number one, for kids to feel welcome. Feel welcome. And I'm going to just kind of backtrack to when I was teaching elementary school. And this is something that's super passionate, that I'm super passionate about. And at the beginning of the school year, with permission from the parents that I worked with, we actually went into the classrooms and educated kids about autism and educated their peers about autism. It shifted that whole dynamic in our school and turned a positive spin for that child, for acceptance. I mean, it just changed that whole piece.
I agree. Structure. That's such a key word. Starting the first day with that structure and that, you know, those expectations and being consistent in them. I think that is like the reason why, you know, today I teach a behavior program, yet there's none of those behaviors are happening, you know, like they would in a classroom that doesn't have structure. And expectations and consistent, you know, and fair consequences for that. So I totally agree with everything you said.
I'm going to piggyback off that, because with COVID going on right now, lining up outside my classroom, kids have the little blue dot that they need to line up on. And sometimes they're coming back from lunch and I just sit back and I'm like, you guys got this. You know where you need to line up. You know what you need to do. And it's there. I mean, that's what we want. We want kids to be independent. And so that's how you create independence.
I'm going to agree with everything that they have said. You know, the structure, all of that. One thing that I have found that has really helped me was teaching my students about grace. That I would love to think that I have all of it down every day. And there are days when the lesson doesn't go well. And to know that my students are like, oh, okay. And I'm like, okay, so I have to reflect here for just a second. I need to take a mindfulness minute. And I do that with my students. I'm like, hey, I need a timeout right now. I need a quick timeout. I need a mindfulness minute. And we've been doing that so much because I know that they need it too when they need breaks between their work. So to take a mindfulness minute and go, okay, so that didn't go as planned. So what could we do next time? You know, and asking for the student collaboration a lot of the time has been so nice because they're like, oh, well, what if we did it this way? And I'm like, didn't think about it. Perfect idea. Let's try it that way next time. So collaborating with my students and truly, truly teaching them about grace. I don't know everything. And I'm learning alongside them. Like when we came back to school right after, you know, we're still in the pandemic, right? So we come back to school and it's like, we all have to give each other some grace right now. You're learning, I'm learning. This is a team effort. And just showing them that truly appreciate what they have to say and respect what they have to say in the classroom, so that they feel safe and comfortable, and that way they can continue to thrive, has been so important. So for me, it's all about that grace. We're all just trying, and I love them so much. And so when I tell them that, I'm like, I just adore you all. They're like, okay, but I'm like, no, for real, I do. And it's all about how much I care about them, and to see that when I need that mindfulness minute, the respect that they give me to also be able to take a minute to just breathe when I remind them to do that, has been amazing. So it's nice to see that that's the effectiveness in my classroom, is just knowing that we're all stressed out, we all got this, and we're all doing it together.
Yeah, and that really comes with forming those relationships. I think that's key to having a highly effective classroom, is taking the time in the beginning to form those relationships with your students, so that you're all there for each other, and they're there for you too. Like on our hardest days, our kids are our biggest cheerleaders, and like that makes it so that you can teach amazing like academic lessons, because you're not worrying about behavior, you're not worrying about all these other things, because the structure's there, the relationships are there, and you can deliver amazing lessons to your students when those components are there.
And can I add one other thing? The three things that I think of is I do, we do, you do. I model, we do together, you do by yourself. And when kids can get to the point where I can do it by myself, that's like, it's that winning day. You're like, you got this.
Cheerleaders. Like, I need to get a set of pom-poms in my classroom for when we do it, because it's a true celebration when they're able to do that. When I can walk out of the classroom or answer a parent phone call, and they're doing exactly what the expectation is, without me having to be like, oh, I need you to do this, this, and this. It's just, you have that built in.
School special ed structure. Who do you go to for guidance when things are going
is, but she's over here. So wherever she is, I'm constantly popping my head, and I'm like, hey, you got a sec?
Yep, we go to each other. And then we also go to we have a department head that we go to, and then we have our student services coordinator as well. And then if anything too, we can go to our administration. We have grade level admin who we can go to, or lead administration.
Yep. On the school level, I think other teachers are, very helpful, and you can go, who to go to for what. And I think that's so important as a special education teacher, is knowing, okay, if I need to know more about how this works, this is the person that I'm going to go to, and just finding your people and have them, that's going to be key into just being successful in general, and staying in this profession and not getting burnt out and stressed out. You need to know your support team. And for our school, it really is, other teachers for questions, our DH, our SSC clerk. Can't forget the SSC clerk. They know like everything. So the SSC clerk, SSC, and who else do we go to? Oh, we have, district RTs who are available to our school when we have questions. I just talk to anybody. If you can give me an answer, then you're my person.
Those are my favorite emails. And I'm like, I know I have a question, and I know you can answer it. And if you can't answer it, you know exactly where to send me. So a lot of the time it is to our SSC, because she knows everybody, right? She works with everybody in the school. So I'm like, quick question, really fast. I know it's not a quick question, but I'm trying to make it quick for you, because I know you have a lot of work to do. But asking my SSC and my team is huge when it comes to any guidance, whether they can help me or I can help them. So we try to make it a very vice versa type thing.
Well, I think there's something unique to the island here. I feel like people are just helpful. I mean, I just feel supported from my parents. I feel, I don't know, it's a different culture over here.
I second that too.
And I just want to add, it really helps to have admin who have special education backgrounds, because I feel like at any time I can pick up the phone and call my admin. Our VP and our principal, both have special education background. So if I have questions, I'll just call them. So that helps a lot.
Question is it normal to feel as if you don't know everything?
Yes, for sure. I feel like that a lot. Uh, it's only my second year in special education, so I feel like there are so many people that I can learn from. This SPEDucator group has been so helpful in answering any questions that I have. And not only that, but they've also given me a voice to use in my school. And I constantly feel like I don't know what I'm doing, especially when a kid asks me a question. I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea what you're talking about or what you're asking, but we will find out. And if I can't find it, I'll find someone else. So yes.
I was gonna say, I've been doing this 20 years and there's always something you can learn. And even with data collection, I know Megan, you had showed me how to take data using Google Forms. And so gave that a try, put the students' goals and objectives into a Google form, and then we could collect data that way, and then we could get percents and all that kind of stuff. So there's always something new or a different approach. And I think it's even at the middle school level, that's one thing I have learned, that you have to be, you're almost like an actor. Like you have to, like you're going for an Academy Award, and having some fun and just bringing out your personality is really, really important. So they can see the true, genuine uniqueness of you. And so there's always something to learn. And I think that's the beauty of the job.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was going to say, that's the beauty of the teaching profession, is that you never know everything and you're constantly learning how to be better. And I think that's important when you're thinking about getting into this profession, that there's always going to be ways that you can improve your practice. And I think that's what we spend a lot of time doing, right? We're always constantly searching for ways that we can do our job better, so that our students end up being, the winners with that, right? Because we can teach better, we can, address behavior better, whatever it is. There's always going to be something to learn.
Well, and I think each year is so different because you get a different group of kids. And so you're learning, well, what this works for this individual, well, but that worked for this individual. So it's, you know, always going into your toolbox.
Well, and I would also like to add that this year is very different than any other year, right? I mean, last year was very different, but this year, trying to balance online, hybrid, in person, all of those types of different types of teaching styles also has all of us digging into those toolboxes and researching and talking to people and conversing with all of these other people who are doing the same thing, just to get information so that we can do what we do best for our students.
There was a structured question about the qualities of special ed teacher that you addressed in classroom characteristics, but what about out of classroom qualities that help you as a special ed teacher?
I want to speak to this one. I think this is huge. Not just middle school, but any level. But for special education teachers, you have to have the empathy, the love. Those things are so key. Your students are going to pick up on that. Like if you're really showing up to work for them, or if you're showing up to work for a paycheck, they can pick up on if you truly care about them. And when they know that you really, really, like from the bottom of your heart, care about their success, uh, then they're going to open up and they're going to be, trying their best to be the best version of themselves. So you really have to come into the classroom with everything you expect your students to be, to have empathy and to care for others and be kind. And you really have to live it, because they're watching and listening to everything you say and do. So those things are very, very important.
I would piggyback on that. My husband tells me I'm just like a ball of emotions and compassion and I think just compassion and understanding. And I think live a very structured life. I'm pretty routine, like in the morning, hop on the bike, go for a run, go to work. And that's kind of just how I guess I live my life. And I also try and bring that into the classroom with the kids. And also to, reward yourself, when the kids do something really, really well, we're going to take time and do a game, or we're going to, have Friday, have some French fries on Friday, or, just bring some of that fun into it, bring your own personality into your teaching. And I think kids want that. I think kids love to know you outside of school, who you are, and to share some of those stories. And yeah, I mean, they like to hear about my surfing, and I don't know, they like hearing that.
I would agree. My kids, I asked them what they do on the weekend, or what was something that they thought was impactful. Because right now we're working on being an impact in our community and recognizing that we all make an impact. So being able to ask them that, and then they'll sometimes return the question, because they know they care. They know that I care truly about what they have to say, and then I know that they care as well because they're asking me to. Another quality I would like to add is also having some tough skin. Middle schoolers are going through such a change, right? Their bodies are changing. They don't know what's happening. Their voices are getting deeper. There's so many things happening. And I think, we all do it when we feel overstressed or overwhelmed. We tend to react sometimes in ways that is not necessarily kind. And knowing that, if I have a student who has come to school, he hasn't eaten breakfast, he didn't sleep well that night, we have so many other factors outside of school that we cannot control. Knowing that it's not against me, it might be a situation that they're in. A parent going through, or a student with parents going through divorce. It's not that they're mad at me, they're mad at something, and I'm a safe place for them. And so I see sometimes where it can become like a strained relationship, and they might say something and I'm like, oh, that one kind of hurt. That was one of those things that I'm like, I know where you're coming from, and I can understand that. And being able to sit down and have a conversation to tell them that I care about them, truly, and to be able to carry on my day. And then starting the day over again. The next day is different. We're not carrying the same baggage we did the day before, and giving them a new start. So I think recognizing that and being mindful of that your students have a life outside of school too is really important.
Would you guys, the question came in, what about the outside qualities for working with colleagues, such as admin or gen ed teachers, or et cetera?
Yeah, I strongly believe that it's really good to, love people on that personal level, care and kind. One thing that I've had to do as a special education teacher in order to advocate for my students, you have to be able to separate that personal relationships that you have with people in the school setting, because when decisions need to be made, or when you need to stand up for something that you truly know is what your student needs, it's all professional, and I try to remind, even if I'm having this very heated discussion with someone, it's like, this is just me from a professional standpoint. Like, this is what we need. And we need to put our feelings on the side sometimes, and our friendships on the side, in order to do what we need to do for our kids.
I would reiterate that too. And I think if I do have an issue like with a colleague or admin, it's like, we're not putting that in email. We're going to actually go together, have a conversation, because you can't read emotions, and you can't, because things come across the wrong way in emails. And then I also think too, I really truly believe that we need to educate all staff about special ed. I really truly believe that there's a misunderstanding, not misunderstanding, people aren't educated about what special ed is, what it looks like, what it could be, what it is, all those pieces. I think we definitely need to educate other staff members about special ed.
Yeah, being communicative, is super important, and being able to do it in a way that when you get your point across, I have a really hard time because I feel like I'm always like when I want to advocate for my students, I gotta like come at a force, and sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes you just have to be like, this is what I need for my student, and the other person's like, oh, okay, you know. But I have such great colleagues that they want to learn and they want to know, so they'll ask lots of questions, and it's not because they're coming at me because they're second guessing. Sometimes they just want to know. And so sometimes I almost have to take a step back from that, because we do have to be very professional when it comes to our students, but also advocate for them so much, because if we don't, who will?